Hello, hello, Remote Work Spain, Remote Work Europe people. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. It's really great to have you with us. And we've got an exciting conversation today for anybody who's here in Spain on a visa, who's moving on the digital nomad visa, or who is hoping to come and join us in Spain. So I'm going to hand over, because I'm not an immigration expert. We do our best to help people, but we do that through partnering with people that we trust. So without any further ado, I shall hand over to Katherine, who is the Entre Tràmites expert on all things visas and immigrations for Spain. So thanks very much for joining us, Katherine, and take it away.
Thank you very much for this time, Maya. Well, as you said, we are Entre Tràmites. I am the lawyer at Entre Tràmites, an immigration expert. And today we're going to be talking to you especially about the digital nomad visa and a few fiscal things that we definitely need you to know, just so that you don't get tricked with certain other things that appear in other places. So basically, before I get into that, Entre Tràmites, we're basically going to help you with anything and everything boring. So if it's boring and the administration is the one that does it, we can help you with that, whether it's the visa, the Beckham's law, registering a company, anything and everything. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to have a QR code that is just for a free consultation, a free 30-minute consultation. Depending on the area, you're going to get a specialist that you need, just in case you have any other questions that we have not answered here. So with that said, let's start with the digital nomad visa. The digital nomad visa, it's no longer the baby. Well, still the baby, considering it's still the newest visa for the entrepreneurship law, but it's thankfully not longer new. We have it down pat. We know everything that we need. So we're good to go. Now we have problems in other types of things with the new regulations in immigration. But this one, we know. So what is it? What is the digital nomad visa? It is a permit specifically for non-EU residents who want to live and work remotely from Spain. Keywords here, non-EU, and work remotely from Spain, okay? You cannot be working in Spain. It's something I'm going to touch a little bit later on more, but you cannot be working for a Spanish company. You can be working for a EU company, but Spanish company, it's a no-go. We have other visas for that. Okay, this is going to allow you to stay here legally, but it's going to make you a resident, both a fiscal resident and a normal resident. So keep that in mind. You can come here with your company if your company, for example, gives you an A1, a certificate of coverage, or register here for Social Security, or you can come here as a freelancer. You have options. What are the benefits for this? Legal residency in Spain. So you're going to be a legal resident in Spain. Let's say that, for example, you want a nationality or a long-term visa later on. This permit counts for that. You're going to have an excellent quality of life. Like I myself am an expert when it comes to food and quality of life, definitely a lot better than the United States, for example. So
better than the UK as well.
Exactly. So we're good on that. We do have some tax advantages. This comes with an asterisk, which I'll get more into that later, because taxes are usually higher here in Spain than, for example, the UK or the United States, but there are ways to get in some advantages. Plenty of co-working spaces, and usually also with good food and good people and good networking. A very good opportunity to learn Spanish or the local language, because we have places like Valencia, which speak Valenciano. You have Catalonia, which speaks Catalan. So you definitely will have options for learning different languages. And if you're a resident here in Spain, what does that mean? You get to travel with the Schengen area. You are not going to need a tourist visa while you're here, while you're registered here in Spain. Europe is basically your oyster. And also, depending on where you live, it is actually very inexpensive to just take a weekend trip anywhere, which is always very, very nice. Okay, so who can benefit for this? We have employees or self-employed. What is going to be considered an employee? People who are working for a foreign company and get authorized by their job there to work here. So what does being authorized mean? It's just, to be honest, a letter. Your company is going to have to write you a letter that says, we know he's moving to Spain. We are fine with them moving and working from Spain. We have no issue on this. If you're self-employed, these are going to be freelancer and people who are going to be working with clients. Very important. at least one of them has to be a company, NSL, NSA, anything, but it has to be a company. And it does have to meet with that one at least most of your minimum requirement for the income that you have to bring. Also very important about this, if you decide to come here as a freelancer, you do have the opportunity to have clients in Spain, but it can never be more than 20% of your total income. So this is something to keep very much in mind, and to remember that if there's something we're always going to say here is Hacienda siempre viene. So basically, the tributary agency always comes. They are going to figure out if you're making more than 20%. So if you want to do that, a fiscal expert, someone who's going to help you get your taxes in order and your IVA and everything, it is very important. It is a good way to feel out the market, but you have to do it correctly just so that you don't lose the visa. So let's start with what the requirements are, the documents are going to be. It's mostly going to be the same for both of them. Basically, you have to provide a certificate showing no criminal record in your home country or in any other country that you've lived with for the past 5 years. Very important about the UK and about the United States. They're very specific about the criminal records that they want. For the UK, it's always going to be the ACRO. It cannot be one of the local ones, has to be the ACRO. For the United States, it has to be the FBI one. Again, no, it cannot be one of the local ones, has to be the FBI one. And they cannot be older than 3 months. Sometimes they allow it to be no older than 6 months, but our recommendation is always to do the 3 months. We know there's sometimes issues with getting a new one, so then we can try to extend that for the 6 months, but we're never going to be able to pass that 6 months mark. You cannot be banned from entering Spain for obvious reasons. If you cannot enter Spain, you really can't be living here. You have to have private health insurance with no co-payments and no waiting periods, or registering to the Spanish Social Security once the permit is granted. So my first practical advice here is, no matter if you're going to register as the Social Security or not, always have, or at least the first year, private health insurance. It's going to make your visa process faster and easier. And also, it's going to allow you to feel out how the system is here. So the Spanish health system, it's amazing. 10 out of 10 would recommend, with everything that has to be done, like getting the help that you need and everything. But it's sometimes slow. Private health insurance can be a little bit faster than that. And it is actually basically the same system. It's just easier access. So the first year, try out the health insurance here, feel out how it is, what your doctors are going to be and everything, and then make the decision if you no longer want to be with the private health insurance. But just keep it in mind for that first year to have it. Okay. Also, you have to have a professional relationship of at least 3 months with either the company that you're working or the client that you have. That's going to be both for freelancers or for self-employed. The company, you have to have been working for them at least 3 months. And the company has to have been created at least a year ago. So if you're working for a company as an employee, the company, you should have been created at least a year ago. Also, if you're a freelancer, let's say I'm coming here as a digital nomad visa, and Entre Tràmites is going to sponsor me. That part is not necessarily a sponsor, but it's going to be, I'm a freelancer for them. I don't work directly for them. I still need Entre Tràmites to have been created at least 1 year ago. And they're going to verify it. They're going to verify it because we're going to need to give them a certificate from the country of origin that says when the company was created. Okay. Also, what do we need? Proof of professional qualifications. So we have 2 ways to do this. The easiest way, a diploma. So if you have a diploma in a university degree, a bachelor's, master's, anything like that, that has to do directly with what you're working, you're covered, you don't need anything more. It has to do with what you're working with. It can be broad in that term. It's not that they need it to be like, I am a political science major and I'm going to work in politics here. No, it could be, I'm a political science major and I'm going to work in administration or something like that, that it has to be loosely related. but it at least has to be loosely related. You sadly cannot come here to be a lawyer with a medical degree. That's not one of the options that they give us yet. The other thing, if we don't have a university degree, because it does have to be a university, what can we do? We can prove them with 3 years of professional experience. But this is going to be a lot of documents. And it's probably going to be that you're going to present them the list of documents in the beginning, and they're still going to want more and going to ask for questions. Usually, what do I start with? If you've been working on the same company for more than 3 years, we're going to use that same company. So we're going to have the contract that you have with them. We're going to have pay slips of the past 3 years. We're going to have everything that we can prove. If you have something, here in Spain, we have something that's called certificado laboral. So basically it says where you have been working with or for who for the past, basically your whole working life there. If you have something like that in your country of origin, get it, because it is very, very helpful, because we are going to need to prove that you have that experience. And also, as I said, you're going to have the list of documents, you're going to submit it, they're going to ask you for more. It's fine. Keep in mind that the funcionario, or the person that we're talking to for the visa, it really has no idea about how usually the system works in the country of origin, or how you can prove your professional experience. It's on us to explain it to them. They are usually very open on that and about receiving information and things like that, but we have to give them all of the information that we need. What else do we need? The contract must be for at least 1 year. If it's less than a year, that means your visa or authorization is probably going to be at least the last for 1 year. If it's indefinite, the best, because if it's indefinite, if you apply from here in Spain, they're probably going to give you the 3 years directly. Then you do one renewal, and then after that, if you still have the time here in Spain needed, permanent residency, and then you can forget about us for a while. And the other part is have the sufficient financial resources. I'm gonna put it up in a slide in a few seconds what that is, but this is very important, and it's also very important that it gets covered by your job. They do allow for a certain amount to be covered by savings, but they don't have a set amount specifically. So what I always feel comfortable is less than 15%. If it's less than 50% and you have it in a bank account that it's easy access, so meaning it's not something that you can only access every 3 months or something like that, we can use that. But the best thing is for you to have everything from your contract. Okay, as I said, how much do we have to prove? All this will change yearly. Why does it change yearly? Because the minimum salary in Spain changes yearly. So for this year, we're talking about 32K approximately, 32K euros approximately. If you're only coming by yourself, if you're bringing a family member, it's going to be 44K, 2 family members, 48, and so on. After the 4th family member, you have to add around 3,000 euros for each family member extra that you bring. But this is very important, that must be met, and it has to be met by the main applicant. So let's say that you're coming here with your partner, and they also have a job, and it's fine, and they make twice as much as you. You cannot use theirs. You have to use yours. So your salary is the one that has to cover the whole families. Okay? Very important to keep in mind on that. Also, if it's something that's not possible, if it's something that needs to be changed, you can always have, as I said at the end of it, I'm going to leave out the QR code for the consultations. You can always come to us, explain your specific situation, and then we can find works around that. Okay. So what are the general documents that we're going to need? We're going to need the application form. It's called the MIT for the main applicant, the MIF for family members, and we're going to need it for each and every family member. Doesn't matter if they're overage or underage, doesn't matter. Everybody needs to apply for their own permit. You're going to need your passport, who has to have a validity of at least 1 year left. You're also going to need your criminal record certificate. This is for everybody that's over the age of 18. We're going to also need your curriculum vitae, it's called also CV or resume, depending on the country. It has to be this, all of the documents need to be in Spanish, but documents like the CV, for example, Just a simple Google translation, does not have to be a sworn translation. Official documents, meaning the criminal record, for example, and the university degree, they have to have sworn translations. And they have to have sworn translations by translators that are allowed to translate documents in Spain. So there's a list, the government has a list about translators that they have already approved that can be used for that, but it's very important to keep in mind that they have to have this approval. Okay. The university degree or the 3 years of professional experience, you either have to have the health insurance or a document stating that you're going to register into the Spanish Social Security once it's gone, or also the A1 or certificate of coverage, which I'm going to be talking about later on. You're going to have either commercial contracts with the foreign company or the contract with the company that you're working if you're an employee, proof of business activity with them for at least the past 3 months, the certificate of incorporation or the certificate of good standing for the company that is going to allow you basically to come here, whether you're a freelancer or whether you're an employee. A company letter that basically is going to state how much you make. It's going to state that you're allowed to be working as a remote employee from Spain, etc. And proof of payment of the administrative fee. The proof of payment of the administrative fee, you pay it online. If you work with us, for example, what we do is we pay it in your name, so you don't have to do that. If you are going to do it by yourself, you have to go to a bank to do the payment so that you have the receipt. Very important about this, if you don't have a NIE number yet, it can be a little bit tricky and a little bit difficult with some banks because they don't have a system that does allow you to do it with the NIE. Some do, and they just allow it to do it with the passport, but just so you know, it can be a little bit tricky. Okay, key points to consider. First, where are we going to be applying for? So we have two options. The consulate of the country of home country of origin, or when you've been a legal resident, or here in Spain through Unidad de Grandes Empresas. So this is one of the few visas that allows you to apply directly from Spain. If you don't need a tourist visa to come into the European Union or Spain, my recommendation is always going to be do it from here in Spain. Why? Because if you apply from here in Spain, first off, you don't have to have an appointment with the consulate, which the less appointments we have to have with the administration, the better. And second of all, you're going to get an authorization for 3 years, barring that they don't, that your contract's for a year or certificate of coverage. So again, those 3 years are also with an asterisk, but most people get the 3 years. So you come into Spain, you apply online also, which is good. You receive the resolution online, you then go to the TIE and you have it for 3 years. What happens if we do it through the consulate? If we do it through the consulate only can only give out for 1 year. So that means that after 1 year here, you're gonna have to renew it again. If you're in one of the countries that have issues with getting a tourist visa, yes, apply from the consulate. It's because it's definitely gonna be faster. But if you can get a tourist visa or you don't need a tourist visa, our recommendation is always to do it from Spain. You have your whole tourist stay, so the 3 months, the 90 days, that they give you to be here as a legal tourist to apply for it. And if you apply, let's say on day 89, which please don't, just for my own peace of mind and my anxiety, let's not leave it until the last second. But if you have to apply on day 89, you don't have to leave after while the application is in process. You can stay here in Spain until the application has been decided. If it's a yes, we move on to the TIE. If it's a no, we see why the reason, and then we either appeal it or look for alternative routes. Okay. What is the processing time? From here in Spain, it's going to be 20 working days. And after that, it's an automatic yes if they haven't asked us for more documents between those. If we're doing it from the consulate, it's going to be 20 working days plus whatever time you need to get the appointment, plus 10 extra days so that they can process the visa. If you're one of the lucky ones that live in a place where the Spanish consulate has appointments, usually around 30 days total, 30 working days. If you are in the normal group, which is there's no appointments anywhere, then it could take around 2 months to 3 months, depending on the situation, and also depending on the time of the year. So with the new regulations, students basically come here in groups around September, a little bit closer to September, and around February. What does that mean? They have the priority. Because digital nomads, non-lucrative, all the other type of visas, basically you have the whole year to apply. You don't have a time constraint or a time limit. Students do. So because students do, it means that in those periods of time, appointments are going to them because they are the ones that need to do it. So also keep that in mind depending on where you want to do it. Oh, and also very practical advice in terms of tax, since I'm talking about time. If you're going to be here, the first year is you're not going to be here the whole year. So basically, you're planning on moving in June, July, something like that. Don't. Just wait until August, September, so you don't become a fiscal resident on that first year. And then it's less tax that you have to work with. But coming back to the visa. The duration, as I said, if we're going to apply from the consulate, it's going to be from 1 year. The permanent from here in Spain is going to be for 3 years. After that time, we renew it, and either we have the 1 year or the 3 years. The renewals is always going to be for the 2 years. That means that on our second renewal, if we applied from here in Spain, that means our next visa after that renewal is going to be either the permanent, or if we're one of the countries that who can get nationality in the 1, 2, 3, or 5 years, we can go for that. But if we applied from the country of origin, from the consulate, that means that we're going to have a second renewal that most people wouldn't get. So remember that you have to be 5 years here with a permit, with a resident permit, so that you can then move on to a permanent residency card. Okay. Let's look at other profile types. Okay, so employees, the documents, as I said, application form, passport, criminal record, CV, university degree, health insurance, contracts with the companies, bank statements, certificate of incorporation, company letter, coverage certificate, or most commonly known as the A1, and proof of payment. And self-employed is, as you can see, most of the documents are the same. You can also get the A1 in most places as a self-employed. It's something people sometimes think they count. You can get a certificate of coverage or an A1 with this. So first check with your country if this is a possibility. Also, check with an expert if Spain is accepting that certificate of coverage. So Spain does not accept all certificates of coverage because basically issues about how they're created or done, especially immigration for the immigration part. For the fiscal part, if the certificate of coverage has a bilateral agreement with Spain, it's usually no issue. But immigration, there's some issues sometimes that can make it a little bit difficult. One with thankfully got resolved was the one with the United States. The one with the United States, it used to be a long time that we cannot get that certificate of coverage to be approved because how the certificate of coverage was created in the United States, it put a Spanish address in it. That meant that when the UD or the immigration officer that was going to look at your permit or approve it saw that, they said that the company was in Spain, so it wouldn't qualify as a digital nomad visa. That thankfully got resolved. Now the certificate of coverage have the information that we need. But these are the type of things that should not matter, but do matter and make things a little bit more difficult for yourself. So keep in mind that you're dealing with 2 countries at the end of this. Countries are sometimes like toddlers. They don't really talk to each other. So you have to go step by step. So best advice I can give you, well, I think you should go with us, of course, because we are amazing and so is my team. But the best advice I can always give you is go with an expert. Go with someone who understands the system so that they can help you. So
just put a question on the screen for you.
Mm-hmm. So what is the certificate of coverage? So the certificate of coverage, basically, it makes it so that you or your company are going to continue to pay health insurance and tax, well, not health insurance, fiscal responsibilities and everything in your country of origin. So if you have a certificate of coverage from the United States or the UK, that means that your taxes, etc., everything still gets paid, and your also your retirement benefits and everything that the company pays in your name still gets paid into that country of origin. It does not get paid in Spain. So in Spain, you would be a fiscal resident, but not really and not fully. So most of the things are going to be covered. And then between Spain and let's use the United States for this example, between Spain and the United States, at the end of the year, they decide, okay, you owe me 5 million, you owe me 6 million, I'm just going to send you 1 million, and we're fine. That means that it is easier for people to actually like move and not have to do everything. Does not mean you do not become a fiscal resident, does not mean you don't have to inform the administration here at the very least about what your economic situation is every year. But
I'm just going to pop this link onto the screen now, because this is a new guide that Entre Tràmites have helped us to produce, which is to give you all the documents to take to your employer. I know we're on the self-employed workers, but questions popping up and coming in. I'll keep most of the questions to the end now, but I just wanted to introduce that document because it's a free download and you can take it straight to HR. So this is what I need from you. It doesn't help you with all the stuff you've got to do. So pay attention for the rest of Katherine's presentation, but we do want to help you make it as easy as possible to get your employer on board. So there's that.
Exactly. And the certificate of coverage is always going to be the easiest path moving forward. It's just not the most possible path everywhere. So there's ways around it. If you cannot get the certificate of coverage, you can just become a normal fiscal resident here in Spain, and it wouldn't be an issue. Okay. So let's talk Social Security registration process. Basically, here are most of the countries, not all of them, but most of the countries that have bilateral agreements between them and Spain. There are more here, more get added each and every time. So just because you don't see the country here does not mean it's not there. It's just that there are a lot of them. Okay. So what is the process if my country has an agreement with Social Security? First, you fill out the TA form, and then with the information about the work data and the company data. Very, very important. The company data has to be the correct one and cannot be here in Spain, because that will make it seem like your company is here in Spain. You need a worker's digital certificate, and you need, thankfully with that means you can get the online application. Oh, also, the digital certificate, once you're here in Spain, it's a godsend. Like, if you may think you don't need it, you need it, because everything that you're going to have to do with the administration, even something as simple as getting an appointment to go to an administration office, the digital certificate is going to help you with that. And it's fairly simple to get. Even depending if you want to go to the office or not, it actually does not have an extra cost from the administration's perspective. So you don't have to ask us, but to be honest, best thing ever to get that digital certificate. Okay. So let's talk about the A1 certificate. This one specifically, I'm going to be talking about the UK. I'm going to give a little bit more information about the United States and other ones that we also know about. But the UK one, as a general rule, is the general rule for most. So they look similar. That's why we like to use this as an example. But if there's any other country that you work for that you need information, again, QR code at the end. Okay, so let's talk about the bilateral agreement overview. So basically, Spain and the UK have a bilateral agreement within the Social Security. So basically, it was after Brexit and everything was reinforced so that it could still work how we needed it to. And it's just going to coordinate the benefits and conditions. Because the UK was actually part of the European Union for so long, it does look a lot like the ones from the European Union, which makes it actually very good in terms of that. Because if there's one thing that I've seen that the European Union actually communicates well with, it's in this type of things when it comes to Social Security and workers who are moving between countries. So I have to be said, out of taking the European Union out of the equation, the UK one is one of the best that I've seen. It makes it so that the pension, retirement, healthcare access, and exports of benefits across the border are handled by the country of origin. So it makes it a little bit easier, and it gives you equal treatments to both nationals and residency. So basically, once you're here in Spain, you're a Spanish national for this purpose. And the A1 is how you get that. So it's going to be an official document that is going to be done by the Social Security system. You started with the UK. So first step of this, if you're an employee or a freelancer, it's going to be started by the company. So the company is the one that starts the A1 certificate, that asks for it. And then after that gets approved, you as the person who are going to move also need to get it approved. Keep in mind, this takes around 6 weeks to 3 months. So it's not something that is fast. It is something that, depending on the situation, can be fairly simple, but it's definitely not going to be fast. It's going to prevent you from double contributions. This is not only the one from the UK, US, etc. also does it, and it applies for employees, for self-employed, and for public servants. Something new about the A1 here with the UK that we're seeing more and more, they cannot be renewed. So right now they have capped the A1 for the UK for 3 years. After that one, you cannot renew it. That means if you decide to stay in Spain, you're going to go in the normal Spanish regimen. This is going to continue the more the world globalizes, this is going to continue to happen more and more. So if the United States, for example, I don't know this to be honest right now, but if the United States, for example, lets it renew, and you're thinking, oh, the United States lets it renew, I'm just going to continue to use that forever and ever, I'm not going to have an issue. Don't think that. The best plan that you can do is to think, okay, right now they're going to give it to me for 3 years. In those 3 years, am I going to be okay if I continue to be here without that certificate of coverage? Put yourself in the worst absolutely case scenario, and then we can work from there. If we still can get an A1 certificate, a certificate of coverage, perfect. But if not, it's better to have the plan, especially countries like the United States, which also my competitors, Americans, we still have to pay taxes even if we don't live there. So definitely it's good to keep that in mind. Okay. So what is the process if it doesn't have? So we're going to need a NIE request for the worker and the legal representative of the company abroad. So this is if you're an employee. If you're an employee, your company has to register here in Spain for the purposes of Social Security. This is not an easy process. This is not a simple process. And it's going to be something that is going to stop a lot of people from coming here as an employee. We have ways around that. We have other visas that we can try to steer you into if the conditions are met, because there's definitely not for everyone. But this is a possibility. What do you need for this? Let's take Entre Tràmites. Let's suddenly say that Entre Tràmites is in the United States. I'm not here for the purposes of this. And Entre Tràmites have 4 founding members. So I want to move to Spain. I need to convince the 4 founding members of Entre Tràmites, which I have great bosses, so that's not going to be an issue. But I need to convince the 4 founding members that they each need to go to the consulate to get a NIE number. The NIE number is just going to be like the United States version of a Social Security. It's just a number. Does not give them permission to live here in Spain, does not make them fiscal residents here. But they are going to have to go to the consulate to get that NIE number. After they get that, they're also going to have to either go to the consulate to get a NIF number, which is a number for the company, or they're going to have to authorize me to get that NIE number. So we're already talking about 2 appointments, and we have not left the country yet. You're still going to need to be a legal representative of the company, because once you come here into Spain, you're going to have to register that company for the purposes of Social Security. What does that mean? The company is going to need a bank account here in Spain. You're going to have access to that bank account, because that is how they're going to pay you. They're going to pay you plus the Social Security into that bank account. And then from there, they're going to pay you, and then they're going to pay the Social Security. So you're going to have power of attorney for making decisions basically and receiving notifications from that company while here, including if something happens and you get a fine for the Social Security, or they just want more information. So it is an involved process. You're also going to need the digital certificate for both the worker and the company, so that you actually can have the appointments with registration and everything. And then after you have that, after we have registered the company here, after we have all of the documents, then you can apply for the digital nomad visa as an employee. It's certainly faster and easier to do it with a certificate of coverage. It's not always possible to do it with a certificate of coverage. So you would either, if you cannot go this route, you can either become a freelancer for the company, and then once you've been with them 3 months as a freelancer, come here as a freelancer. Or as I said, there's other visas that you can try to apply for depending on the situation, that some of them are worth monetarily wise, others are not, but the QR code at the end will help you on that. Okay. What happens if I'm a freelancer before we move on to the renewals? If I'm a freelancer, basically I just come here with all the documents from the beginning. The company does not need to be registered. It is good if I have a certificate of coverage, but it's not needed. So then, because you're the one that's going to be paying your own social security system. For that, you register as here as a freelancer, as an autonomo. The first year, you pay around 90 euros a month. After that, you're going to be paying for the pleasure of working here in Spain from 200 to 500 euros a month, depending on your income. Keep in mind, on top of that, there are other taxations, and there's IVA that you also have to declare every 3 months, and either pay it every 3 months or pay it at the end of the year in around December. So let's talk renewals. So I came here with a 1-year visa. My extension is going to be for 2 years. I came here with a 3-year authorization. My extension is still going to be for the 2 years. When can I apply? 60 days before the TIA expires, 90 days after. Practical tip number 2. The second you get your wonderful TIA card at the commissary, you're going to look at the expiration date. And you're going to put that expiration date in your calendar, in your partner's calendar, in your children's calendar, in everyone, because you cannot forget that date. 60 days before, you can apply for the extension, or 90 days after. Careful with the 90 days after. First off, it can get you fined. It does not happen often, but it can get you a fine. Even if you get fined, if you still meet the requirements, you get approved. But why are we going to pay the administration more money when we don't really need to? And also, if you do it on the 90 days after, you have to be here in Spain. Well, you have to be here in Spain in the 60 or in the 90 days in each of them. But if you do it in the 60 days before, and let's say you're getting close to the time where you have to renew it, and you want to go on vacation somewhere, that's fine. You renew it before that, you leave, you still have your TIA valid to enter. The second your TIA is not valid, if you leave without an authorization helping you to come back, you are not allowed to come back with that. You either have to wait for your tourist days, or you have to go to a consulate, because you no longer have tourist days, to apply for an initial residency. Meaning, since this is going to be initial, all that time you have accumulated for the permanent residency is lost. It does not count. So keep in mind, if my TIA has expired, I cannot leave Spain without a letter authorizing me to come back. Other key requirements. The proof of financial means is going to change yearly. So you obviously it does not have to change yearly if you have it for the 3 years one. You only have to give them the information that first year, and then you have to give them the new information in 3 years once you do the renewal. They're not going to be fully checking it, but once you do the renewal, you have to meet the new requirements. You have to be maintained the remote work. It can be with another company if that's the situation, but if it was with another company and you change companies as an employee, not as a freelancer, but as an employee, you have to inform the UG when that happens. It cannot be that you inform them only in the renewal. If it happened 1-2 years while you're here in Spain, you have to inform them. And you also have to change the information in Social Security and everything else. You have to provide them with either the new health insurance or still be in the one for the Spanish. Provided an updated criminal certificate, which is always fun, especially when it's not easy to get a certificate, criminal record certificate. Like, for example, in the United States, it's difficult because you have to get fingerprints. So getting that one from Spain can be an issue, but it can be done. and have to have your tax and social security obligations up to date. Okay. Jennifer says, we are up for our renewal in March 2026, and we have been told that no criminal update from our home country is not required in the last 3 years. Is that correct? It used to be correct. So it used to be that the requirement did not need no criminal records. It also did not need any certificate of coverage. In fact, when I apply for my clients, they don't say that it's not one of the checkbox that I have to check, or they just not let me move forward. But what is happening? They are asking it for us later. And places like the United States, it's very difficult to get the criminal record for in 15 days, which is the maximum that you have for it. So it used to be not true, but now they are asking for it. We have no reason, no rhythm or reason why, to be honest. There makes absolutely no sense to us. But there are certain fights we cannot go have with the administration because it's just a waste of breath and it's not going to change. So right now, we are going to need that criminal record certificate. What they're still not asking for yet is an updated certificate on either marriage licenses or birth certificates. They are still allowing us to just give out a document that says that nothing has changed yet. That is today on September 30th. We don't know what can happen tomorrow, sadly. Okay, so let's come to one of my favorite topics, Beckham's Law. So I'm not much of a football fan, but I do like David Beckham because he made something very interesting in general. So this is not actually called Beckham's Law, but it was created because of David Beckham. So the story goes years and years ago when David Beckham was wanting to play for Spain, that Real Madrid really wanted David Beckham to come here. But David Beckham did not want to pay the tax, the income tax that's here. Completely normal. He had a very good benefit there, and here he would have ended up at 47%. So like a lot of things in Spain, we moved through football. So since we wanted David Beckham, Beckham's Law was created so that he could come here. Now we have in places like Madrid, Mbappé Law, another football player. So basically, most of my football players, I only know them because they made a laws about them. Don't ask me about anything else. But if you need anything done, if you need something changed, make sure that a football player also needs them, and the administration will really get on that one. So after that little sideways, what is Beckham's Law? Beckham's Law basically is an income tax regimen that is going to make it so that you're going to be taxed only at 24% until over a little bit over €500,000. Very important. After that mark, it's going to be at 47%. So there are people who are going to end up at 47%. What happens if I don't have Beckham's Law? If you don't have Beckham's Law, you could are getting taxed at 19% and you end up getting until 47%, depending on the income that you make. What else is good about Beckham's Law? It has an exemption of wealth tax, which means if you have anything and everything you have outside of Spain, it does not get taxed. You have to inform Spain, you have to do forms and everything, but it will not get taxed. Okay, Steve asked, if you're a UK citizen trying to get this visa, you pay taxes on your wages in just the UK or in Spain too. So if you have Beckham's Law, you're going to pay taxes in all of your wages because you, as the person, are the one that's working here in Spain. Another thing is if you have, for example, a company, which is something that other people do, they create their own companies in the UK, and most of the money still stays there, so you kind of don't have to pay that because it's considered wealth tax. It's not simple because, as I'm going to tell you soon, Beckham's Law does not apply for freelancers. There's a little bit of an area where you can create a company and use that, but it is a complicated procedure. It's definitely not something you should be doing alone. But if you're going to come here as a freelancer, already do not think about Beckham's Law, to be honest. Do not think about it. Do not think that you're going to have that a regimen. You're going to be here as in the normal regimen. But if you do have Beckham's Law, you are the person who is the worker, meaning I can be working for the UK, for China, for the moon, or the 20% that I can from Spain. I am going to be taxed on that in Spain. If I'm a worker here, but I have received dividends and I have Beckham's law, but my dividends are all in the UK, on that one I don't get taxed because that's the wealth tax. But everything that's you as a person working, you will get taxed on that. About how long Beckham's law starts. It's around 6 years, but not really. So it's going to be 5 years plus the year that you apply. So we're saying that we are applying now in September. I'm going to have this next few months of Beckham's law plus the next 5 years. So if I apply in December of this year, basically I'm going to have 5 years and 1 month. So it's not really 6 years. The maximum it could be is 6 years. And there's an exception on taxes for of non-employment from international income. Why? Because this is covered by the wealth tax. Important things to keep in mind when it comes to inheritance and donations. These are not covered by Beckham's law. These are going to be covered by Spanish normal laws, meaning it's going to be taxed on that. So, and also Spain has very specific rules about donations depending on the community that you live in. So it's not going to be the same in Valencia as it's going to be in Madrid, for example. So keep that in mind if that is something that you have to do. Another thing to keep in mind, think of Beckham's law at the end of this, it's going to be for 5 years and a little bit more. Even if the first year is not worth it to you, but you think that in year 2, 3, 4, 5, because you're going to get a higher salary, you're going to have more income outside of Spain, etc., it's worth it. So sometimes the best thing that we can do is pay a little bit more upfront with that 24% so that then we can get that information. Then we can continue the rest of it with the Beckham's law. Why am I saying this? Because one of the requirements for the Beckham's law is that you have to apply on the first 6 months that you have been here in Spain. What does the first 6 months that you've been here in Spain mean? It's gonna depend on that wonderful person who's gonna look at your Beckham's law in the tributary agency. It used to be that it was once I got my residency, that's when the 6 months started. It's no longer like that. So if you did the empadronamiento before, they can take the empadronamiento as the time where you started here. That means you're not going to have the full 6 months to apply for it. So the second that you can apply for it, meaning the second that it's approved, start with the Beckham's law. Do not wait. Do not think I still have 3 more months, 5 more months. Do not wait. The second that you can do it, start with that process, because we think it's 6 months in theory, but they're always going to find something to try to deny it. Keep in mind, this is a game of Spain wants you to come here, but Spain would prefer that you pay 47% instead of 24%. So they're losing money every time they approve a Beckham's law. This is basically like a fight. You have to prove to them and you have to win so that you get that 24 months. Is it possible? It is. I am being a little bit dramatic just so that you get the importance of it. But at the end of this, the important thing is the second I can apply for the Beckham's law is the second I'm going to apply for the Beckham's law. I'm not going to wait. What are the other requirements? I could not have been a resident in Spain during the previous 5 tax years, which are from January to December. If I was a student during that time, supposedly I wasn't a fiscal resident, so I should be able to get Beckham's law. It's not that easy. So if you were working during that time because you were legally allowed to work, it means that you're going to have issues getting the Beckham's law. Even if you weren't working, you could still have issues getting the Beckham's law. Second thing, the reason for moving into Spain has to be employment. Let's say I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I wanted to do the non-lucrative visa, but once I got here, I was like, oh, I actually want the digital nomad visa. I can change it. I'm still on during those first 6 months, no issue. Let's go do the digital nomad visa and then get the Beckham's law. They're going to say no. because the reason why you moved here was not because of work. You decided that once you were here. So very important, the reason for moving: employment contract, digital nomad visa, entrepreneur, or investor. If we directly applied for one of these visas, there's not going to be much of an issue. But if we're changing, modifying visas, it's going to be very difficult. I can already tell you 100% for certain that if you move here with the non-lucrative and you're going to change, they're going to deny it. That's it, sadly. Okay. When it comes to family members, can they apply under me? They can. Spouses can apply, and children up to 25 years old. And again, the deadlines. Please remember 6 months. But those 6 months are not necessarily for when the residency was approved. So the second that we can is the second that we're applying for it. Okay. So who should get Beckham's Law? First off, this information that I'm giving you is general information. It means that depending on your specific situation, it may change or not. But just to have an idea, when should I start looking into Beckham's Law? If my income is going to be above 60K. So if your income is going to be above 60K, you should definitely start already looking into Beckham's Law. If you're going to have high earning growth, you should definitely start looking into Beckham's Law. Or if you have overseas access over 10K, you should definitely be looking into Beckham's Law. Let's talk specifically about the 60K. Why the 60K and not less? Because Beckham's Law does not allow you to have any other tax benefit. So if you have Beckham's Law, you're not going to have any other. So let's say, for example, that you're a person that comes here, that you have children, that you're going to one of the communities that has tax benefits. It means that you're not going to need Beckham's Law. You probably can use the ones that are already in the system and then get a good percentage. But if that's not the issue, or if you're going to be above 60K, you should definitely be talking to one of our experts about it so that they can make sure that you get that Beckham's Law and that you do it from the beginning. When it comes to immigration and fiscal responsibility, as you've seen, I've been talking here about both together. It is by design because we think, oh, let's just sort out the immigration and then we'll figure out the fiscal resident. As you have seen through this, you cannot do that. They need to go hand in hand, because if not, I can get you here with a non-lucrative, or I can get you here with a digital nomad as a freelancer. It's going to be the easiest immigration-wise path. It's going to require the last documents. It's going to give you more freedom. And then what's going to happen once you have cannot apply for Beckham's Law, once you have to start paying taxes, etc. So you are going to have to think of all of this as it's just one thing together. We cannot look at the fiscal aspect without looking at the immigration, and vice versa. So coming back into Beckham's Law, when do I not need Beckham's Law? If your income is going to be below 53, you're not going to need it. If you're going to be stable in your growth income, you're not going to need it. And if you have no overseas access, you're not going to need it. So on that, it's better to just use the normal regimen and then take advantage of whatever benefits they have. Okay, and let's go for one of the frequently asked questions. Once I have a permit, what happens if I change jobs? That's going to depend on if you're an employee or a freelancer. If you're a freelancer, all that you have to do is, when the renewal time comes, give them the information about your new job. If you're an employee, you have to inform the UG on the first 30 days that you're no longer with that company. Depending on them, they're going to ask you to apply for the digital nomad visa again. From here in Spain, no issue, still 20 working days. When they have asked us of that, it hasn't been a very big of a situation. They also haven't asked it all of the time. But you're also going to have to change if the company's registered here for Social Security purposes, or if you have an A1 or a certificate of coverage, you're going to have to change that. Okay. How long can I apply for permanent residency or citizenship? So for permanent residency, it's 5 years. After you've been here legally with the residency for 5 years and you meet the requirements of the minimum time that you've been here in Spain, you can apply. Citizenship is going to depend on your nationality. It's also going to depend on if you have parents or grandparents who were Spanish nationals. So usually the rule is either 1, 2, 3, 5, or 10 years, depending on that category, is when you're going to be able to apply. The general, most people, unless they are from Latin America, have to go through the 10-year one. People from most Latin American countries do the 2-year one. Okay. Can I work for other companies while on the digital nomad visa? You can, as long as they're not Spanish companies. So you can have 2, 3, 500 companies. It's just that they cannot be Spanish companies. And if you are working with a Spanish company, less than 20% of the money that you make has to come from that Spanish company. Can I bring my whole family? You can bring spouses, partners, registered partners, and children, either under the age of 18, or if they're over 18 until 25, if we can prove that they are dependent on you. And when I'm talking dependent, I am saying you're paying for the schooling, you're paying for basically everything, and they have not lived apart from you, basically. So if they pay for their own apartment or things like that, then it's going to cause issues. Or if they're legally dependent on you for some other reason. When it comes to parents, that's a very tricky situation. They have to prove dependency of both medical and money-wise of at least 2 to 3 years. But if there's a situation like that, there's other visas that can be maybe done for those family members that can also allow them to be here. Okay. What does apostille mean, and what does sworn translation mean? So the apostille is basically a way to legalize the documents. So a document that was given to me by the United States is not legal here in Spain unless I pass through the legalized process. There are 2 types of legalization process. One, and the most common one, is the Den Haag apostille, which thankfully most countries are a part of it. So that means that your country, you're going to take that, let's say, criminal record certificate. You're going to go to, in the United States, is one of the federal or state offices, and you're going to tell them, I need this document with the Den Haag apostille. They're going to put a document on top of it, and it's going to make it legal in every country that accepts the Den Haag apostille. What happens if your country does not a part of the Den Haag apostille? In that case, it's a legal process, which it will depend on country from country, but broad scenario is you're going to get the document from the country of origin. You're going to go to a notary or someone that is allowed in your country to legalize that document. Then you're going to get an appointment at the consulate, the Spanish consulate, and they're going to also legalize on top of that legalization. So it's a little bit of a border issue. The sworn translation. The sworn translation is always done after the apostille. So the order is, I get the document, I apostille or legalize the document, I get the sworn translation. And what does sworn translation mean? So sworn translation is translations that have been done by someone who is legally certified by Spain to do that Spanish translation. So if those persons are not certified by Spain, it is not considered a sworn translation, means you're going to have to go to someone else. When it comes to the sworn translations, when it comes to translations, keep in mind that there are 2 types. There are the sworn translations, and there are also the simple translations. When we're talking about simple translation, we just literally mean put it in DeepL, in Google Translate, have them translate the document for you in Spanish, and we're golden. Usually is what we do with documents like that, CV or the curriculum vitae. Other official documents from the government, those always need sworn translations. Okay, so we're gonna take some questions, but before that, as I promised you, the QR code for the free consultation with one of our specialists. Once you get here, there's going to be a menu. Basically, it's going to ask you whether you need more fiscal, immigration, or any other type of help, just so that you can use it and take advantage of our wonderful people who man those helplines.
Great, thanks ever so much, Katherine. That's been extremely useful. I'm mindful of time, that we're coming up on the hour now, but I would like to squeeze in a couple of questions if you're able to stick around, and hopefully people asking how. First of all, we just had a follow-up. Can you definitively confirm that anybody coming from the US for renewal is advised to get that FBI background update?
So what I can say in my experience is we've been 50-50 on this one, literally like around 50-50. I usually don't send that from the beginning, basically the criminal record, because I want to know what the idea is and I want to know what they are. They have asked us on it sometimes. They have on others. They have not asked for it. We yet don't know if there's a specific person who's asking for it versus others that are not. But right now we're on a 50-50 with this.
Oh, that's so Spain, isn't it? I mean, it's just what the law says, what the law does. Yeah. Okay. Another thing that's actually so Spain is I'm wondering if you could unpack for us the situation of administrative silence. Now, we had a comment from Jen about this, no, that's the wrong one. We had a question about administrative silence and it potentially causing problems in renewal. So Can you clarify for this what this means for visa applicants?
So basically, the administrative silence, it should, with this, the digital nomad visa, as with others, is a yes. Does not mean you don't still have to get the document that authorizes you to come here, basically because it's basically how you get the TA in most cases, but also how you get the authorization for the renewal. So after those 20 working days, is a yes. They can. Only reason why they can say no is for very specific reasons. Like, for example, they saw that one of your documents was false, but it's not that they can come to you to say no. That, however, does not mean that you do not have to meet the requirements for the new one. So let's say originally you got an administrative silence because they were overworked. They just didn't have time to look at your file. So the 20 working days happened. You got your authorization that says after it that it was approved. Then you go to the renewal, but you don't meet the fiscal requirements. You're still going to get denied because you have to meet the requirements at that time also. So because you got a yes in the beginning, because of administrative silence, does not mean that if you do not meet the requirements, you're gonna get a yes again. You would only get a yes if, again, what happens is an administrative silence, or if you meet the requirements.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. And I think this is a good case for anybody who's got a specific individual case to use that QR code and get an appointment with an immigration expert to clarify. A couple more questions have come in via email. One is, can Entre Tràmites help with the sworn translations? Do you have providers there?
So yes, we do have partners that we work with that we know are sworn translators. They also do everything online, which makes it easier, so you don't have to send physical documents to us or to them. But we do have very wonderful partners that help us out with that.
Okay, and another one, we still have a question coming about taxes, but I'm going to follow that one up because that's not what this webinar is about. And I think we've talked about taxes enough, and I'm very aware of time. The final question that we've had, it comes up all the time on the Facebook group, is getting appointments to do stuff. I'm in Valencia. You cannot get appointments with TAs for love nor money. What happens about all the deadlines for renewals, for complying in the first place? Is this something Entre Tràmites can help with? And what do you advise generally if people's appointments cannot be made in a reasonable time?
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the renewal or the initial application, with that, we can definitely help with all of it. But specific, what we do is that we do it online. So for example, I have my digital certificate as a lawyer allows me to do the application process online. So I don't have to get an appointment in the immigration office to then do the application. What has to be done in presence is the TA, yes or yes, because you have to get fingerprint. It says that you have to do it in the first month that you receive the application. The administration is not enforcing this right now. Why is the administration not enforcing this right now? Because they know it's impossible. They know that people can be looking every day, every hour, and you are not going to get it. So the one that we have to be careful and do it in time is the renewal part of it, the 60 days before, the 90 days after. When it comes to the empadronamiento and the TA process, while they say that we have only a month, the administration understands the situation. They know that it's not possible. So we can take as long basically as we need. It does not mean we shouldn't be looking for appointments. Does not mean we should not be contacting, because if something tomorrow happens and they decide that they're going to open full appointments, we're back to the 1 month. But as long as the system is how it is, and as long as they know that there are no appointments because they know it, we are fine for the TIA part of it.
Okay, that's good to know. It's just something to get used to in Spain here. It's like the background check, sometimes there's going to be what the law says, what the actual interpretation is, what grey areas are allowed, and that's why it's so essential that you retain somebody like Entre Tràmites to have them in your corner to deal directly with the source when it comes to this stuff, because it's navigating it is so difficult on your own. It's worth it. Those of us who've been here for a number of years can attest, Spain is a great place to live and make your home, and it is possible to live with this ambiguity, if you like, when you have the right service providers, and that's why we partner with Entre Tràmites. I'd like to thank everybody who's stuck with us. We've gone well over the hour now, so I'm mindful of that, and I'm going to let everybody get back to their lunch and their day. If you have further questions, please drop them in the comments wherever you're watching this thread, because we have a number of different overlapping streams on social media and on our website. Katherine and I will try to get to them. I've put in the comments just now the 2 important links, which you can get to it via this QR code, or you can get to it via the comments, to book a free discovery call with Entre Tràmites, whether that's about tax, because we had some questions there, or about immigration in particular. We are not going to start digging into any more questions now because we're well over time. So thank you very much, Katherine, for joining us today. It's been extremely helpful. Thank you, everybody watching this live. Thank you, everybody watching it later, because, it's not just about the people who are here on the live stream. We are here from you, Remote Work Europe and Entre Tràmites, for whatever you might need in the future. So have a great afternoon, everybody.